Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 130 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 56 of A Clash of Kings, that's Theon 5.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter. We're going to try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully, we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what occurred, we'll discuss our thoughts on it, we'll provide some useful background, we'll compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, provide you with additional information that will help you with characters and geography of this chapter.
Indeed.
How are you, Mackelly?
I am doing okay. You and I have we've just been we've just been talking for quite a while, and I shared some not so pleasant news with you, but
yes. About stuff that was not ready for the pod. Not humorous in the slightest. So
not in the slightest. But I'm doing all right, all things considering. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, I mean, I'm a little thrown off kilter by what you've told me. I send you good wishes, my friend, because I know you've had a rough week.
Well, thank you. But hey, talking about Song of Ice and Fire always helps lighten my mood. So
exactly. I will tell you. Do you do Wordle?
I don't. I hear about it all the time, and I don't know what it is. I feel like I'm totally out of touch here.
It's just it's a 5-letter word, and you guess at it, and it tells you whether the letter is in the right place, in the word, but in the wrong place, or not there. And you've got 6 guesses to get the word. You see.
Okay.
It's not very complicated.
Right.
I'm on a 2-day streak of getting it in 2 guesses.
So you just get one word a day?
1 word a day. You're only allowed to do 1 word a day.
Oh, okay. Huh. So that's what people are talking about with all this Wordle stuff. Mm-hmm. Where do you play it? Is it an app?
There's an app, yeah.
Okay. Guess I maybe need to try it out.
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, it depends, because like, one of the 2, when I did it in 2, one of them, I got like 4 of the letters in the first guess. I was like, oh, look at that. But it was kind of complicated. The word was tapir, T-A-P-I-R.
What does that word mean?
Like an animal with a long snout, South American animal.
Okay, yeah.
Taper.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. And so it's not a common word either, but I got it in 2 because the letters I got, I was like, what the heck is this? And it's the only thing I could think of. I knew it had a T at the front and R-I-P somewhere.
Right.
So I was like, and so it took me like 2 minutes, but I was like, the only word I can really think of and it was that. I was like,
Hey, success. All right.
So this is the thing I do now.
Yeah, it is. It's how you pass the time when you're not thinking about the Ghosts of Harrenhal and A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah. It's not a big investment of time. It is 1 word a day.
I'll have to try it. See if I can match your 2-word 2-day streak. Or 2
Carson and I play
2-day streak.
Slightly different versions of the same game, so we both have a word. So what we then do is we test each other on each other's word using the other person's first guess. So I took my first guess and then I passed it on. So Carson also got that in 2. When I told her what my first guess was, she got it in 2 as well.
Okay, good. Cool. Sounds fun.
Yes, it's a very middle-aged pastime we've got there. We got gas logs fitted in our house as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we've got gas logs in. We've got 2 fireplaces in this house. The basement has wood burning and the first floor has gas. So what do you think?
It's very nice. Yeah, it's nice. Our gas logs look like an old adult orangutan.
You have to take a picture and share it with us.
It's got like a curved thing on the outside. It just looks like an adult orangutan. I'll send you a picture.
Yes, you must.
It seems implausible, but once you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Well, we had an issue the first time we lit our wood burning fireplace here in the basement because it's the basement, and my house has 2 stories above it. You know, and then there's an attic above the second story.
That's a lot of chimney right there.
Yeah, so we lit the fire and we were having a nice time down here in the basement, and then we walk upstairs, and the first floor is filled with smoke, and we're like, "What is happening? Is our fireplace leaking smoke somewhere?"
Not such a long chimney, it turns out.
So what had happened? after we brought someone in to investigate what had happened, is because it's such a long run up a chimney from the basement, it was going up the chimney, up the flue from the basement, and then because the other one was cold, the other flue from the first floor was cold, it was getting sucked down. The smoke was getting sucked down the flue to the first floor and filling the first floor with smoke. So,
how about that? You be careful.
I've not run the fireplace in the basement since, although I think I know how to fix it.
That's the thing, you see. Ours was a wood burning fireplace, but when I opened it for the guy to put the gas logs in, I discovered some unburned logs that had been in there for like 8 years since the last time we used it, and I was like, "This is why we're getting gas logs, so we actually use this thing."
Right, we use it all the time now in the winter. So
yeah, anyway, it's nice. Let's get down to business. Where was Theon last we heard of him? Last we saw of Theon, he was discovering that the Stark boys, along with Hodor, the direwolves, and the wildling Asha, had gone missing. 2 of his men were dead. He pulled together a hunting party and set out after them, only to come up empty-handed. Reek, who's the prisoner, if you remember, he's the prisoner that was taken when Roose Bolton's bastard son Ramsay was killed by... Help me out here.
Sir Roderick
Cassella, that's right. He obviously has been freed by Theon, and he had the idea that he knew that the boys were at the mill not far away, and showed Theon a bag of furs and a wolf's head brooch. Since then, news of the boys' deaths has made its way through Westeros. Mackelly, why don't you give them the summary?
Okay. Theon dreams of running through a forest of trees, each tree with a face laughing at him. He's chased by great wolves with the heads of small children. He wakes flailing to his Squire Wex and Reek standing over him. They bring him the news that his sister has arrived. He's soaked with sweat and out of sorts, so he washes and dresses before meeting her in the Great Hall.
While he regains his composure and second-guesses his choice of outfit, foppish dandy was his first ill-advised try, he thinks on his recent horrible nightmares. The night before, he dreamed he was in the mill, dressing stiff, small bodies. The night prior's dream, again, was in the mill. This time he was having sex with the miller's wife, as he used to do, only this time her private parts had teeth, which gnawed off his manhood, as her other teeth tore out his throat. In the waking world, he thinks to himself that he had watched the miller's wife die, begging him for mercy.
After changing to more manly wool and ringmail, remembering the preferred Ironborn dress code, he tops the ensemble off with a poorly fashioned crown. He is the Prince of Winterfell, after all. He falls in with his bodyguards, as Ironborn have been dropping like flies lately. Everyone who accompanied him to the mill has died mysteriously. The kennel master Farlen was blamed for the killings and executed, but Theon knows the truth. The Ironborn had to die. They can't keep secrets. Reek did the deeds.
Arriving at the Great Hall, Theon discovers his sister has only brought 20 men. Not nearly enough to defend the castle, and only 10 of them are staying in Winterfell. The other 10 will accompany Asha back to Deepwood Mart. The siblings trade barbs, Asha asking which gave the fiercest fight, the cripple or the babe. Theon claiming she's jealous of his feat, taking Winterfell with only 30 men. He thinks back to showing the boys' bodies to the people of Winterfell and how Maester Luwin wanted to bury the bodies in the crypts, but he said no, burning them instead.
The pair retire to Ned Stark's solar to talk in private. Theon shares the news that Dagmar Cleftjaw's siege of Torrhen Square has been broken. However, Asha reveals she knows more details about it than he does, adding that Dagmar lives and is leading the survivors back to the stony shore. The Tallhearts and Manderleys are sending men and supplies to aid Sir Roderick Cassell's effort to retake Winterfell. He has no chance of holding the castle without more men.
Asha says he should have thought about that before he took the castle. She admits the move isn't without merit, but he should have burned Winterfell and taken the princes to Pike. Then he might truly have won the war for the Ironborn. She reminds Theon that Greyjoys are krakens. They rise from the water, and Winterfell is too far from the sea. Theon changes tack, suggesting he killed the boys as revenge for their older brothers' deaths, Asha and Theon's.
Right.
Asha is not fooled. She asks him to come with her to Deepwood Mart. He refuses.
After Asha's departure, Reek approaches Theon with an offer. Give him a bag of silver, and he'll rustle up 100 to 200-ish men. All he asks for in return is Farlen's daughter, Paula. Theon agrees. He wants the man dead, but he fears the secrets Reek might spill if threatened. That night, Theon dreams of the feast for King Robert's arrival at Winterfell, way back at the beginning of the Game of Thrones. At first, all is merriment, but suddenly he's dining with the dead. All around him are dead men and women he once knew, as well as those he didn't. Then the doors to the hall crash open, and Robb and Greywind enter. Robb and the wolf bleed from savage wounds across their bodies.
He wakes and viciously rapes Kyra. Afterwards, he walks the walls and realizes this is the Stark's castle along with everything in it. He should have gone with Asha. He sees the boys' heads on their spikes atop the gatehouse. As he stares at them, he thinks of the miller's boys, both of an age with Bran and Rickon. Reek flayed the skin from their faces and dipped their heads in tar. After that, they were indistinguishable from the Stark boys.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. Oh boy. Well, the Stark boys seem to be alive, so that's good, but
Theon did murder two innocent children.
And they're just and seemingly at least the mother for sure. I assume the father didn't survive either. So
right.
But thankfully, we only had to keep up the ruse of the Starks boys' death for 2 chapters because that was
it was difficult for me because it felt like obviously it's hard to know when you do know the answer,
right?
But it felt like it was kind of self-explanatory. That's what Reek was after, but
right.
I guess it's better that we don't do spoilers. That's what the spoilers channel is for.
The chapter starts with 3 straight dreams that he either has or recaps for us right off the bat. The first dream, the one that he dreams to actually kick off the chapter, is basically about great wolves with small children's heads chasing him, and he's running through what seemed to be forest of weirwood trees, and all the faces are laughing at him. So, not the most mystifying dream imagery.
Especially once you've read the rest of the chapter.
Right, yes, becomes even... although you notice that the term is small children, not Bran and Rickon.
Right. Because probably the faces that are haunting him are the 2 miller's children.
Yes, exactly. And when you get to the end of the chapter, you realize that there were several clues about the reveal at the end peppered in along the way. Like, the second dream, he dreams of dressing the dead he doesn't say they're children, but he mentions how tiny their waists are and how little they are. And so...
of course, I was trying to figure out why you were saying that was a clue, but of course, if it was Bran and Rickon, they would have already been dressed in Stark clothes, and therefore there would have been no reason to dress them.
Right, yes, he was dressing them, and now we know why Reek brought that stuff along, why he brought the bag of furs and the wolf's head brooch.
Oh, and he didn't let Lewin bury the boys in the crypts, and that's a little bit of guilt, I guess, because he knows that these are not Starks and shouldn't be in the crypts.
That's what I was wondering. Was he paying respect to the Starks by not burying those non-Stark bodies in there? Because if he did allow that, it would further secure his story as believable. If they had like an official Stark burial and everything, it would make it seem more legitimate anyway.
Maybe he was really proud of the handiwork they'd done on making these two random kids look like Bran and Rickon, and so wanted to keep them on display as long as possible.
Could have been that. I think he burned them fairly soon after they were shown at the castle.
But their heads were still there. The heads were still up on the thing.
I was wondering, because Lewin wanted to sew the heads back onto the bodies before burying them, and I was wondering if he was concerned, although their faces were flayed and they were dipped in tar, if Lewin looked too closely, he might be able to pick up on the truth of the matter.
You know, we do the comparison of the TV show later, as you're aware. But in the TV show, the boys were just burned. Their bodies were hung up, not their heads, their whole bodies, but they were burned. And Lewin, you see at one point, Lewin's looking very carefully at them. And that's, I think, exactly that same thought, that he's looking at Bran's body and thinking, I should see evidence of the broken back or whatever, you know.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It could be that. But he does pick, the chapter mentions that he picks what's left of the wolf's head brooch out of the fire after the bodies have been burned. So,
right. Yes. Which again, the Stark boys would have been wearing those potentially, but
right. Yeah.
Obviously, it's a big old clue for what Reek did.
You know, it's the same brooch. At least the description is the same brooch as to, I believe it was the chapter. It was the chapter with the harvest feast where Jojen and Mira Reed made their entrance. He was wearing that brooch in that chapter, that wolf's head, ivory and jet, I think it was, or whatever.
So the third dream is where the miller's wife bites off his manhood with her extra set of teeth. And rips out his throat during sex. He mentioned in the last chapter that he knew the miller's wife in the biblical sense previously. I don't think he raped her here. I think they just murdered her here. Right.
I think so, yes. But he mentions that, you know, in life, not in this dream, or not, he doesn't mention, he thinks that she pleaded with him for mercy. And the word mercy comes up in italics a lot in this chapter. He thinks it several times.
Yeah, and he denies denying her mercy by saying it was Gelmar that killed you, but that's just... he's not one for taking responsibility as Theon.
Exactly, yes. That's the first of a string of instances where he doesn't take responsibility for his actions. He also blames Asha for his predicament, saying that she took too long to get there. And then after he kills Farlen, he thinks to Farlen, because he was friendly with Farlen back before all this happened, that he had no choice. He had to kill his own Ironborn because they can't keep secrets. So,
this is a topic which I'll return to in pedantry.
Right, okay.
Quite heavily, let me tell you.
But one thing about the miller's wife is he, as you mentioned, he divulged to us, the reader, at the end of the last Theon chapter, that he had sex with her multiple times. And he doesn't reveal when he started having sex with her, but we know he's roughly 20-ish. And so likely he's been sexually active for 4 to 5-ish years, 16, 15. So, so it's likely the Bran boy, who was the Bran stand-in, would be too old, but the Rickon stand-in could possibly be his son.
Theon's own child. That's terrible, Mackelly.
I mean, it's just possible,
Wow. You're in a dark place, my friend.
I'm in a dark place. I am in a dark place.
Good grief. Theon started to travel inside Winterfell with bodyguards because basically the Ironborn keep dying like flies. But it turns out that it's Theon that's killing them, or at least Reek is killing them on Theon's behalf, because basically he wants to silence everyone who knows the truth about the two boys.
Right. Yes, because he doesn't think...
And then frames Farlen for these murders, which is, I mean... I've got some thoughts about Theon.
Yeah, so all the Ironborn that came with them to the mill died by sort of accidents. One falls down the stairs, another falls in a well. One does get his throat slit, which is not really Unless it was a shaving accident, is not so much
a really bad shaving
accident there. But, he thinks at the end of the chapter that he should have had Reek killed as Reek did the others. So that's when we discover, it was definitely Reek that was doing it.
But actually, I mean, Reek on his own, maybe you can call him a liar. But if all of the Ironborn know as well, and they're like, yeah, that's true, then it's harder to face off against Reek. But
yeah, although that's why he doesn't kill him at the end of the chapter, is because he's afraid that he's got a written account of what happened somewhere.
Right, but you kill him quickly, and a written account. That's a good point. Yeah, that's kind of a Reek kind of thing to do.
But I mean, if you think about it, a written account, how many people, aside from Maester Luwin, in that castle could actually read anyway?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But
it gets left lying around for long enough. Someone who can read might find it. But so you had a question whether Reek took the initiative by himself or Theon ordered it.
Right. Yes. I don't think that's clear whether who was the driver behind this. Did Reek decide, I've got to kill these people, and Theon figured out what was happening? Or did Theon say, hey, I want you to kill these guys because loose lips sink ships?
As I read the chapter, I thought it was all Theon. But now you've asked the question, I'm like, well, actually, I don't feel like it made that clear. It could have been Reek takes initiative. I mean, he took the initiative to bring the wolf's head brooch and the...
Right.
So, maybe it's another example of that. Yeah, interesting.
Reek kind of reminded me of like Theon's own personal Jack and Hagar here. Killing all these. You have
slightly more of a loose cannon. It's hard to imagine for me why any of the Ironborn are standing for this at all. I think it's a shame that Dagmar is not present to give Theon some better advice.
Yes.
These people are Ironborn. They attack, they pillage, and they get out of there. That's their natural style.
Right.
Presumably, there are some riches in Winterfell. That's if Theon came to me and I was one of the Ironborn and said, hey, we're going to take Winterfell, I would be like, woohoo! I mean, it's not like the Starks are into the fripperies, but I'm sure there's some material wealth lying around Winterfell.
8,000 years of time, they've had to have accumulated something valuable.
This is a stone that is very polished. Oh, great. So take Winterfell, fill your pockets, kidnap the princes, and get out of there. That's what to do.
Right, and Black Lauren kind of voices what you're saying here. He says, we do well to leave this place. Now, he's referring to all the remaining men being unsettled by the mysterious murders of the other Ironborn, but you'd have to imagine that's a common thought throughout the rest of the men. Then.
Right, but because, their natural style is to raid, to pillage, to get away.
Right.
They've done all of that apart from the getting away. So now they've got to live with the people that they raped and pillaged. I mean, It's like the guilt, the sort of self-consciousness of it.
They're not used to having to look them in the eye every day.
Exactly. Apart from the ones they take as slaves, but, they start treating them as slaves.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, Black Lauren says, you don't know whether the washerwoman wants to kiss you or kill you. And the cupbearer, I don't know, whoever it is that fills their cups, is filling it with ale or bale. So, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And you know what? About another thing about the Ironborn, the 3 Ironborn that died? They've tainted another well. How many wells are they possibly going to have left? They dumped Septon Chael's body into one well. Maybe they dumped this one into the same well.
The same well.
Keep tainting that same one.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Big sign over it saying, dump bodies here well.
This is the body well.
But the thing is, what are they gaining by being there? They are sitting around waiting for an overwhelming military force.
Yeah.
If Roderick Cassell's force isn't enough to completely squash them, then the king in the north will come back with tens of thousands of men and really, really squash them. And given that the remaining Ironborn all truly believe that the two boys' heads on spikes are Bran and Rickon Stark, they can't be expecting a lot of mercy.
No, and there's no reason for... well, except for, as I mentioned, Beth Cassell is inside that castle as far as we haven't heard her name yet, but as far as we know, unless she's killed in some way, she's in there. But otherwise, there's no reason for this force to just not storm the walls of what will amount to like 30 people left and they're defending it.
Right.
So it's...
And to kill more of the Ironborn is bizarre. I mean,
it is.
They don't have enough men already. They're killing them off. And now, because of the killing them off, which is all fakery, he's having to pull even more men off the walls to act as bodyguards for him against the made-up threat.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely an odd strategic decision to willfully take out your own men. You started with 30. You lost 2 when the Starks escaped. Now you've lost 3 more. So you're down to 25. He's going to run out of men if he keeps going at this pace.
But so when Asha comes, they talk, and she raises the idea of kidnapping the princes and bringing them to Pike. And to me, that seems pretty smart, because it does put the Starks in a very difficult position. Certainly a much better idea than taking Winterfell and trying to hold it against everyone on planet Earth, or whatever planet this is called.
Right.
With only a bunch of men you don't trust to keep a secret on your side. I mean, if you don't trust them to keep a secret, how do you trust them to stand up to 10,000 angry Northerners?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, her plan has some merit to it, certainly.
Yeah. For me, if you do it, you can parlay with the Starks for peace. You can have Bran back if you cede the Iron Islands to us, don't invade, allow us to keep everything we just stole, maybe some of the west coast of the north becomes theirs as well, something. Right. And then they keep Rickon as a hostage until he's 18, like Theon was held in Winterfell.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Rickon might make a better Ironborn anyway.
Yeah, he's practically Ironborn.
I think so. Yeah.
Although I'm not sure that Shaggy Dog would like Pike.
No, probably not.
That was a good plan. But the thing is, I'm surprised now hearing it and thinking about it. I'm surprised that Theon didn't think of it himself.
Yeah.
It would have been a much better solution for him than hanging around Winterfell until things went pear-shaped.
I think he is singularly focused on being the Prince of Winterfell. He says, "You'd like to see me lose my prize, wouldn't you?" And she says, "Your prize is going to be the doom of you." And she's right. He could have salvaged this and actually possibly really it pleased his father this time.
Yeah. And I mean, look, it was always going to be an uphill sales job to replace the Starks in Winterfell, but
absolutely,
he's offering absolutely nothing as a ruler. He's brought murder and misery. His men have raped the women. He's now murdered children. He's duping people into believing that he's murdered children that they cared about, not just murdering random children.
Right.
Which is what he actually did.
Yeah. Yeah. Asha says as much. She says, you've made an enemy of everyone within 1,000 leagues by putting those heads up on those spikes.
Right. What is gained by that?
Yeah. Well.
And now he's raped the one girl who seemed to be pleased to see him.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. God, that was terrible. That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you do take over a hostile territory, you've got to do something to cement your position. I mean, help the people, lessen their load in some way, give them some wise counsel. I mean, anything. But
right.
At least offer them a vision of their future which is at least on par with what they were heading towards.
Yeah, he sort of did that when he first got to Winterfell, and he told them about how he was going to be as benevolent as Ned Stark, and, you'll find me...
Actions, words.
Right, yes, exactly. It's fallen apart since that speech he gave.
So Dagmar and company have lost their fight at Torrance Square, which, again, it was just a feint to get Roderick Cassell out of Winterfell.
Yeah, Dagmar said, "I have no chance of winning that," and Theon says, "I don't expect you to. It's not the point of it." So,
yeah.
But, so Asha, she says to Theon about the loss there, the the loss of that fight, that the Ironborn lack discipline to stand a charge from armored horses, and that the Ironborn get their strength from the sea, which kind of very well sums up the whole reason why this invasion of the North is poorly thought out in the first place. It's very similar to Theon's taking of Winterfell. They could probably take good chunks of the North right now, but how in the world are they going to hold it? This has been my contention all along.
Yep.
Once, a long time ago, the Ironborn did reign over the Riverlands. We've talked about this in several background chapters, but that was a long time ago, and it was a different part of Westeros. The Riverlands is a smaller, more condensed area than the vast North, and the Riverland lords are not used to having one house as their king or lord for 8,000
Right,
years.
there was considerable civil infighting in the Riverlands in that time, which is what made it ripe for the Iron Islands to take it, right?
Right. They've always
Whereas
the
the
Riverlands
North
have always been changing hands.
The North is completely unified, and you fight the Starks, you fight everyone up there.
Yeah. Now, maybe in a generation or two, the Ironborn could learn to ride in a cavalry and create and defend against the shield wall, but they don't have time for that right now.
Right. But like I was saying, if you could make a deal whereby in return for Bran you get the west coast of the North, then you've got a foothold on the mainland, and you could perhaps develop some cavalry,
Yeah. Well, as Theon mentions, the cavalry's coming to Winterfell right now because
not with Ironborn aboard.
No, he mentions that Leopold Tallheart has left Torrhen Square to aid Roderick Cassell's force, and that the Manderleys in White Harbor have sent 12 barges up the river with knights, war horses, and siege engines. And he wonders, as we all should, how in the world would he possibly hold against that with 30 men? And that's when Asha says, you should have thought of that before you took the castle.
Yep. Yeah, so, there's not much more to say. I mean, White Harbour is one of the few cities in Westeros, so they clearly have enough fighting men in reserve to mount a significant attack on Winterfell, especially in conjunction with Sir Roderick and Leopold Tallheart. So the only sensible option now is to flee.
Yes.
Which Asha wants him to do. She's trying to convince him of this, but he's determined to see it through.
I don't know if what I'm about to say is true because I've not fact-checked it, but I remember in elementary school or something hearing that raccoons, if they latch onto something shiny, they just won't let it go. And it feels like what Theon's doing. Just let it go. It's not good for you. Open your hand and drop it and run away. So I don't know if I'm making that up, but the metaphor still holds true, whether my facts are right or not.
For sure. So as you mentioned, Theon isn't going to kill Reek because he's afraid that he has a written account of the killing of the Miller's boys. But, okay, I'm holding it back for pedantry, but that does seem like it's a good reason to kill him. But actually, I say that, but when I get to pedantry, I'm going to undermine that because it's not a good reason to kill him. There's no reason to keep this secret. Anyway, that's for pedantry.
Okay. You have a theory about Reek, though.
I do. My theory about Reek is that he's dipped his toe. So at the end of this chapter, Reek has gone, right? He's gone with a bag full of money.
Yes, he says, I'll get you some men. I'll be back.
Right. I think Reek has dipped his toe into the shallow, shallow waters of Lake Theon and found him wanting. And he's now fleeced him for this money, and he's headed out of there as fast as he can, as fast as his stinky little legs will carry him. It's a shame because awful as he assuredly was, he was an interesting character, but I don't think he's coming back with those 100 to 200 men.
It would be funny if he rode out and he ended up with an entourage of Ironborn behind him. We're out of here too.
If he said, I got a bag of money, guys, come on, let's go. Yeah, it's impossible to believe that even with a chunk of money, he could muster a force that could make a material difference to the defence of Winterfell. There aren't enough anti-Stark Northerners. In fact, one way that they would lose Winterfell here is if he bribes 100, maybe 200 men back into Winterfell, and they all just pull their swords on Theon.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. These are Northmen that would be fighting against their own kingsmen. He says, we're in the north. Reek says, we're in the north. I'm from the north. A lot of people know me. But he's not saying, I'm going to go to the Westerlands and get some Lannisters.
Right.
I mean, his only hope would be to find some disgruntled Bolton men who've been displaced by Roderick when he killed Ramsay Snow and his men.
I don't think Roderick was like rounding them up or chasing them out of town. I mean, it was Ramsay Snow was the problem, right?
Yeah, but there was a lot of fighting between the Manderleys and the Bolton men over the Hornwood lands. So there might be some bad blood there, but still, it's a hard sell to fight for the Ironborn against your own king, while the heads of 2 Stark princes adorn the walls of Winterfell.
Right. I mean, that's like, that bag of money might get one guy. He'll kill Reek and take the bag of money.
That's a good point. Yeah, like for what's the sales pitch that Reek had? Hey, I've got some
because it's a suicide mission.
Yeah.
Money can get people to do things, but this is a suicide mission. You're turning on the Starks to the benefit of Theon Greyjoy, who if you know him at all, you know he's a little snivelling wretch.
Right.
And sure, you'll get more money than you could have earned in 2 years, but you'll be dead in 2 days.
Right. You better spend it fast. You know that saying, don't spend it all in one place? Scrap that.
You might as well.
Spend it all wherever you can, because you won't last long. But so for his efforts, Reek says all he wants as his reward. Theon says you can name your reward. He says he just wants Paula for his efforts. And Paula is Farlen's daughter. And we discovered she had been raped by 2 men at the very onset of the Ironborn taking Winterfell. One of them was Drennan, who was one of the 2 Ironborn that Osha killed. I think it was the one that Osha killed. The other one, the wolves killed. And Theon did have them beaten over raping Osha. That was back when he was going to be a Ned Stark-like ruler. And now he's going to hand her over to Reek.
But you see, that whole beating of those 2 guys is a perfect example of how the Ironborn style of fighting does not fit with occupation. Because these guys expect to rape the women when they take somewhere. That's what they expect to do. Yeah. But Theon wanted to rule over them as a benevolent ruler, so then he had to have his own men beaten for doing that which they thought they should do.
Right.
It's just crazy.
It would take generations to get that out of them. They don't have the time to teach them how to be
clear instructions from ruler Theon. That would have been handy.
That would have, yes. Maybe before we go in there, you say, hey, don't touch any of the small folk.
Exactly. We're going in there to stick around. So Reek flayed the faces of the Miller boys. Now we've talked about the flaying before. The Bolton's sigil is the flayed man. It's a Bolton custom, supposedly dead for 1,000 years. But Reek hung out with Ramsay Snow, who is, of course, Roose Bolton's bastard. And so maybe this is where he learned this little technique, which is a sign that particular pastime is not completely gone from the Bolton line.
Yeah, maybe has Ramsay been practicing it in secret and Reek picked up some things, or has Roose revived the custom and nobody's lived long enough to tell on him? But
you see this?
But that the flaying of the faces, it goes back to Jojen's dream in Bran 5, I think it was. He says that he dreamed of a man coming. The man that they captured. He's telling Bran this. I dreamed of the man that they captured today, which happened to be Reek. And he was trying to tell Bran that I saw some tragic news about you too. And he said, you and your brother lay dead at his feet, and he was skinning off your faces with a long red blade. And
I'm glad you brought it up. Jojen's dream has come true, and Bran and Rickon are not dead.
But then he said, I saw you and Rickon in your crypts down in the dark with all the dead kings around their stone wolves or something like that. And they're not in the crypt. So, they've got those bodies, but those were the bodies of the Miller's boys anyway. So,
right.
yeah.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, Jojen's dream, he said these green dreams, they don't lie. There's no change in them and they don't lie. So, but he was mistaken because it wasn't actually the boys he saw turned out to actually not be Rickon and Bran, of course.
Yes. I mean, that's the problem with these infallible dreams. If you're not paying attention, you might not notice that isn't Bran and Rickon.
Right.
And then you go tell Bran and Rickon, scare the bejesus out of them.
Yes, needlessly scared them.
Are you sure it was me? Well, he had a wolf brooch, let me tell you.
And it must have been me.
Yeah, he was walking around. Whoa, slow down. So the chapter ends with more dreams. Theon again, and in this last dream, he dines with the dead at a feast in the Great Hall. This is the original feast when Robert and Cersei came to Winterfell at the start of the whole thing. But then, sort of like the people, the ones he knows and the ones he don't, all turn out to be dead, which of course is kind of happening. Quite a few of the people that were there are no more.
Yeah, basically everyone he mentioned was dead with one exception. But he mentions Benford Tallheart, and just in case you forgot, that was the young man who led the wild hares to deal with the raiding on the Stony Shore, and then Theon allowed his uncle Aaron to drown Benford as an offering to the drowned god. But then he sees what he calls pale shades with long grim faces moving through the shadows along the walls, and to me that seemed like dead Stark kings and lords, and maybe is his mind talking to him, trying to get him to see that he's trying to replace 8,000 years of Stark history, and that's
there'll be a lot of ghosts haunting your dreams for a long time to come.
Exactly. But I said it was with one exception that they're all dead, because Robb and Greywind make a rather dramatic entrance. The door crashes open, and Robb and Greywind are standing in the doorway, and they're bleeding from what he calls 100 wounds each. But the last we heard of Robb, he had taken the crag from the Westerlings in the Westerlands, and that was just last chapter. So I thought maybe these are metaphorical wounds of trust, friendship, honor caused by his betrayal of Robb, possibly.
That is how I read this as well. Normally, I read very literally, but I too read these as metaphorical wounds. The slights that have been perpetrated, particularly by Theon, are manifesting themselves as real wounds in this dream.
Right. Yes. I mean, it's possible Robb has been injured and word just hasn't gotten to Riverrun or
True.
Us as the readers yet. But again, I should say, Theon's mind wouldn't know that that's happened. So unless he's developed the third eye,
yes,
or he's starting to have green dreams, then I agree that it's likely metaphorical wounds. But so he wakes from this dream, and he's in a kind of a rough state because he's every night having these terrible dreams, and he calls for Luwin, who makes him a sleeping draught, and Theon pours it down the privy after Luwin leaves, because he's concerned that Luwin might poison him. You'd have to imagine, especially after seeing the bodies of the boys, that Luwin might very much
sacrifice his life to get rid of Theon at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he could easily do that, you'd think, or have him poisoned one way or another, unless he's got a food taster or a drink taster or something. Yeah. But I would think if Theon did die, say he did get poisoned, that the remaining Ironborn there would leave for Deepwood Motte. I don't think they're going to stick it out.
In a heartbeat. They're not all crazy. Theon appears to be stark staring mad.
No pun intended. Because
he's going to die here.
But although, on the other hand, you might think, yay for the Winterfell people, but it's just as likely that they'd kill everyone in the castle and possibly raise the castle like Asha suggested.
Possibly, but honestly, I think there's so few of them now that the citizens of Winterfell might actually be able to defend themselves.
Yeah, maybe.
Just barricade themselves in one corner and let the Ironborn... Eventually, the Ironborn will just go. They'll get bored and leave.
Right.
They've got the treasure from this place. What else is there?
Yeah.
It's not like there's a war crimes tribunal being held somewhere to bring them to justice.
True. Yeah, it's possible they could just leave. But it's also just as possible that they might kill everyone in there, burn the castle, and then leave.
After he doesn't take Luwin's sleeping draft, he calls for Kyra and then he rapes her brutally and orders her out. And again, she was one of the very few people who, given Theon the time of day, she actually was being nice to him. And so he's burned one last bridge with that. And it's taking away his sleep as well, because he's ended the chapter walking the walls of Winterfell and looking down and realising it is the Stark's place and always will be. And if 8,000 years of ancestors can infest your dreams, then it's not going to be...
It's going to be
You're not going to enjoy sleeping there.
Yeah. That is the very similar thought to what Tyrion had when he found out what Theon was up to. He thought...
Yeah.
He was specifically referring to the Godswood being the Stark's Godwood. Godswood, it will be in 50 years and 500 years, 5,000 years. But at that time, I felt like he was using the Godswood as a metaphor for the castle in the north in general. So, I mean, it's hard to supplant a house that's ruled a region for a better part of 8,000 years.
Right. Do you have some background for us, Mackelly?
I do. So one thing, I don't know if we mentioned it in the summary or not, but we hadn't discussed it yet in our discussion, is that Theon suggests that he killed Bran and Rickon to avenge the death of his brothers Roderick and Meryn during the Greyjoy Rebellion. I think we did mention it in the summary, actually. But
we did.
Anyway,
we did.
A quick reminder of how those two men died. Roderick led the Iron Fleet longships against Seaguard and House Mallister. He was actually killed by Lord Jason Mallister during that siege. Meryn died during the siege at Pike, led by King Robert himself and his best friend Eddard Stark. And Meryn was actually on the wall of the South Tower where the breach occurred, and he was crushed when the tower collapsed. Of course, we... and Asha know that he's full of it regarding avenging his brother's deaths, because back in Theon 1, he had a memory of telling Patrick Mallister while they traveled together from Riverrun to Seaguard that he didn't care much for his older brother Roderick and held no ill will towards Patrick's father for killing him. And he also revealed to us that his only memories of his brother Meryn were of cruel japes and compulsive lies. So it seems like that was something he was just whipping up there.
Yep.
And but so as far as their ages, Roderick was around possibly 22 at the oldest when he died, but that would assume his father Balon was 12 when Roderick was born, which seems a little young even for the Ironborn. Or possibly Roderick could have been at the youngest 15, which would have made his father a little more age appropriate, but it also seems unlikely he would be leading a siege at age 15. So it's probably somewhere in between those two. Meryn was at least a year younger than Roderick, so he was somewhere between 14 and 21 when he died. And all these age ranges are based off of Asha being 3 years older than Theon, but younger than both of the older brothers. Both were old enough to be fighting in the rebellion and died in battle. Unlike the Stark children who, yes, were nearly a man grown, but still technically children. So it's not exactly a one-to-one correlation here with the brothers' deaths. Theon also thinks that he knew as soon as he said this to Asha that his father would approve. And I question whether Theon has any clue what his father would or wouldn't approve of, because he seems to have gotten it wrong in every instance so far. Came wearing the wrong clothing. He came with a proposal with an alliance with Robb, which did not go over well. And he thought he took Winterfell thinking that would please his father. He's 0 for 3 at this point.
Yeah, Perhaps he's adopting the George Costanza model at this point of just doing exactly the opposite of what his instincts tell him.
Yeah, I think if he had done that, he might be in a lot better shape.
Exactly. Comparison to the television show. So I mentioned Maester Lewin looking at the bodies and definitely suspicious that they were not Bran and Rickon, but not voicing anything, but just looking at them with sort of attention. I couldn't find any evidence of Theon having a dream in the show. A lot of the times the dreams get skipped over.
Right. Sure,
Yara, who's the name of his sister in the TV show, she's Asha. Yara Asha arrives while he's counting dead ravens. So show Theon is less keen for the news of Bran and Rickon's death to be escaping Winterfell.
Oh, okay.
Which is strange. It's a strange difference.
Yeah.
Nor does show Theon try to couch it as revenge for his brothers. That doesn't even get mentioned. It's, as I said, it's charred bodies rather than heads on the wall. Yara has not come to relieve Theon. She's come to take him home. Much of their conversation is verbatim, but she does add a sweet story about him as a baby and beseeches him not to die so far from the sea.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's very similar.
Paints them as a little more of a loving sibling relationship there.
Well, she says you were an awful baby. You cried all the time. So she's not that nice about it,
Okay.
All right, pedantry corner. I've been waiting for pedantry for a while because now I've got some things to voice. All right. Killing your own men while you're short-staffed. He's doing it to hide a secret that isn't worth keeping from the locals anyway. Locals who would actually be quite relieved to learn the secret.
True. Yes.
They would actually be happy to learn the secret. They would at least start to hate him a bit less. Why do this? It makes no sense. Unless your idea that this was Reek just doing it off his own bat to begin with.
Yeah, I think he killed the children to save face more with the Ironborn than with the small folk of Winterfell. I think in that chapter, he was mortified about the idea of Asha finding out that he let the two princes escape.
Yeah.
And their heads are at least an example of, I didn't let them escape, I killed them.
Yeah. Yeah. So then my other one is, why would Asha leave 10 men? She knows this is pointless, right? She's actually giving Theon a little bit of help to not do the smart thing. Sacrificing 10 of her own men in the process. If she leaves 0, that might be the tipping point where Theon says, all right, I'm coming home.
Yeah, I wonder what those 10 men did to pull that
right. Yeah. I've got we have a mission called Operation Certain Death. We're looking for 10 volunteers.
Yeah, but like you said, well, like you were kind of hinting at in comparison with not hinting at, but like you mentioned in comparison with the TV show, she seemed even in this chapter to generally want to save him from this situation he's gotten himself into. She said, "You're the blood of my blood, regardless of what else you are. And for the mother who bore us both, come with me to Deepwood Motte." Like she really did make a plea for him to do the right thing.
Yeah, she wants to save her brother. Who doesn't deserve it, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe she should have come with 20 men and said, "Oh, I'm taking all 20 of them with me. And guess what? I'm taking your 25 with me too. So you can either sit here by yourself or you could come with me."
I like that plan. News and notes.
Well, Winterfell is burning. Well, a Game of Thrones Winterfell set is anyway.
Oh, okay.
This one was used in the later seasons of the show and was built in Moneyglass, Northern Ireland.
It's a great name.
Yeah, it is. That's a cool name. According to the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue, it was a controlled burn. However, it's unclear if it's being done to remove the set or if another show or movie or something bought the set and used it for a burning castle scene. But one of the Winterfell sets has gone up in flames.
We got a very kind donation from Robbie Thunder on the I'll Buy Me a Coffee site. And he said, "Hi, I've discovered your podcast not too long ago and have been listening every day when walking the dog, cooking, cleaning. This is when you should listen to us. This is what we're here for. I really enjoy the binging, but the end draws near for that. Soon I'll have to wait for each new episode. That's going to suck. Keep up the good work. You guys keep it interesting, and you've provided me with some entertainment along the way. Greetings from Belgium. Well, Belgium's one of my favourite countries. Always has been.
That's right. Yes.
And thank you, Robbie Thunder. Your gift was very generous, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. The Arbor Gold was delicious.
Conclusion. The Stark boys are alive. That is great news for everyone who isn't a miller near Winterfell.
Right. It's still, like we said at the beginning, it's a horrific tragedy. 2 innocent boys and a whole family brutally murdered to cover Theon's incompetence, the escape, and keep this folly of an idea of being the Prince of Winterfell alive. But I will say this, like you said, the Stark boys are alive, hooray. But in that last Jon chapter, when he was a wolf talking to the Bran weirwood tree, Jon smelled death. So, I don't know. We'll have to see what that means. And
well, did he smell the death on the miller's children? Is that what he smelled?
Oh, could be. Yeah, that could be.
They'd had a brush with death, and that's coming through in the dream somehow.
Yeah. And another thing that doesn't make a lot of sense is that Jojen's dream, he saw the boys' bodies. He saw the boys in the crypts. So that doesn't fit either because the bodies were burned. Maybe Lewin took the ashes and bones and put them down in the crypts anyway.
Yeah. Although maybe Jojen's dream is more sort of metaphorical in the sense that when a Stark dies, they go in the Stark crypts, so maybe it's just more sort of generic like that, I know it was you, that I couldn't see the faces because they were getting flayed off, but, then I saw you in the crypt, so, definitely you.
Right. Could be that.
Which you're wrong about, Jojen, but just,
And Theon he's just not a leader.
He's a leader of sorts, just not a very good one.
His role is inconsistent and self-serving. He refuses to take responsibility for any move that goes wrong. We've seen him in multiple instances. Asha outplays him in every dispute and action plan. He lacks the ability to think through plans to eventual consequences. Him putting his trust in Reek with no thought to if Reek's going to... He does think, probably never see that guy again. So he is self-aware enough to at least have that thought.
Yeah, but Reek has been useful to him. No question about that. That's undeniable, that Reek has actually provided some... I mean, without Reek, he wouldn't have killed the 2 Miller's boys. That's probably for the best, but... then he would have had to come back shamefaced to Winterfell.
Right.
So Reek has helped him to do what Theon wanted. What Reek would have been a better friend if he'd said, "Don't do this, that's madness." But that doesn't sound like Reek's MO.
No, it doesn't. And Reek, speaking of Reek, he seems like more than just a stinky guy. He had the foresight to plan for not finding the boys, which is
he did.
Pretty heads up maneuver there. And he can read and write and flay. So he's deeper than you might think at first glance or first sniff.
Yeah, so things are spiraling out of control. Theon and his self-deluded visions of grandeur are unable to recognize it. His only recourse now is to leave with Asha. He refuses to do it. And he's lost control. I mean, he's still nominally in control of Winterfell, but you can't see any future for him here that isn't going to end badly.
Certainly is looking pretty grim for our Theon Greyjoy.
Yeah. I think Theon is making a bid for the Viserys Targaryen Memorial form-fitting crown as biggest a-hole in the books.
Yeah.
His actions are monstrous. He's entirely lacking in logic or rationale. He is stricken with guilt, and yet unwilling to get off the path he's chosen. I guess the guilt does put him one rung above Joffrey and Viserys, because they didn't even suffer from that.
That is true. Yes. He is at least feeling guilt. You got a good point there. You got anything else?
No.
All right. Why don't you tell them about the 3 ways they can help us out?
Well, there's 3 ways you can help us out. First and foremost, you can go out and leave us a review. There's no better advertising. We'd appreciate that. Secondly, You can buy some merch at theghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. And lastly, you could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold, as Robbie Thunder did, at www.buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. A big thank you to those who've already become sustainers. We really appreciate what you've done.
Absolutely. And as always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com. You can go out and follow us on Twitter at @ghostharrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.